I still remember the days when everyday tasks felt like an uphill battle. My weight, a staggering 330 pounds, made even the simplest activities a struggle. Getting out of bed was a challenge, and walking to the kitchen left me breathless. I felt like I was trapped in a body that wasn't mine, like I was a prisoner in my own skin. The physical pain was one thing, but it was the emotional toll that really took its toll on me. People would stare, whisper, and point. They'd make assumptions about me, about my intelligence, my character, and my worth, all based on my weight. It was like I was invisible, yet at the same time I was on full display for everyone to judge. I tried to ignore the whispers, to tune out the snickers and the comments. But it's hard to ignore the weight of the world when it's bearing down on you. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of self-doubt and shame. I questioned my own worth, wondering if I was more than just my weight. Was I lovable? Was I deserving of happiness? It was a toxic cycle, one that fed on itself and left me feeling broken and defeated. I'd try to diet, to exercise, to fit into the molds that society deemed acceptable. But every failure, every setback, every plateau felt like a personal failing. It was like I was stuck in a never-ending nightmare, one that I couldn't wake up from. I felt like I was losing myself bit by bit, piece by piece. I was disappearing under the weight of my own self-doubt. And the worst part was, I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how to escape the prison I'd built for myself. But little did anyone know, a turning point was just around the corner. I still remember the day my life changed forever. It was a typical Monday morning, and I was getting ready for another day of hiding behind my mask of self-doubt and insecurity. But little did I know, fate had other plans. As I was getting dressed, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and for the first time I really saw myself. I saw a 330-pound person staring back at me, and it was like a punch to the gut. I felt like I was looking at a stranger, someone who had given up on life. In that moment, something inside of me snapped. I realized that I had been living in denial, pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. I was stuck in a rut, and I didn't know how to get out. But as I looked at myself in the mirror, I knew that I had to make a change. I couldn't keep living like this, feeling sorry for myself and blaming everyone else for my problems. It was a wake-up call, a dramatic event that sparked something deep within me. For the first time in my life, I felt a sense of motivation, a desire to take control of my life and turn it around. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face the challenges head-on. I was ready to start my journey, no matter how long and difficult it would be. As I stood there, looking at myself in the mirror, I felt a sense of self-awareness that I had never experienced before. I realized that I had the power to change my life, to create the life I wanted. And with that realization, I felt a sense of hope that I had never felt before. I knew that I could do it, that I could overcome any obstacle and achieve my dreams. But little did I know, this was just the beginning. The journey ahead would be filled with ups and downs, twists and turns. There would be times when I would want to give up, when it would seem like the whole world was against me. But I was determined to push through, to keep going no matter what. And as I stood there, looking at myself in the mirror, I knew that I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. But would I be able to overcome the obstacles that lay ahead? I still remember the day I hit rock bottom. I was 330 pounds, and my weight was taking a toll on my physical and mental health. But it was in that moment of darkness that I found a glimmer of hope. I realized that I had been living my life without a sense of purpose, just going through the motions of daily routine without any direction or passion. As I began to reflect on my life, I started to uncover the underlying reasons for my weight struggles. I had always turned to food for comfort, using it as a coping mechanism for stress, anxiety, and low self-esteem. But I knew that I couldn't keep living like this. I needed to find a new way to deal with my emotions, a way that wouldn't destroy my health. I started by asking myself questions. What made me happy? What were my passions? What did I want to achieve in life? At first, the answers were unclear, but as I continued to dig deeper, I began to identify a new sense of direction. I realized that I had a passion for business, and I wanted to start my own company. But it wasn't just about making money. It was about creating something that would make a difference in people's lives. I wanted to build a company that would inspire and empower others, a company that would help people overcome their own struggles and achieve their goals. As I continued on this journey of self-discovery, I started to notice changes in myself. I had more energy, I was more confident, and I felt a sense of purpose that I had never felt before. I was no longer just going through the motions of life. I was living with intention and direction. And this newfound understanding of myself and my purpose was just the beginning. It was the spark that would ignite a fire within me, a fire that would drive me to achieve greatness and lead me to places I never thought possible. I still remember the day I decided to take control of my life. It was as if the fog had lifted and I could finally see the road ahead of me. With a clear purpose in mind, I started taking action. The first step was to create a plan for weight loss and self-improvement. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to succeed. I began by setting small, achievable goals for myself. I started by walking short distances each day, gradually increasing the length and intensity of my workouts. I also began to pay attention to my diet, cutting back on unhealthy snacks and focusing on nutrient-rich foods. It wasn't easy, and there were many times when I felt like giving up. But I refused to let my setbacks define me. Instead, I learned to overcome them, to push through the struggles and keep moving forward. I reminded myself of why I was doing this, of the life I wanted to lead, and the person I wanted to become. And with each small victory, my confidence grew. As the weeks went by, I started to notice changes in my body. The weight was slowly coming off, and I had more energy than I had in years. But it wasn't just physical changes that I was experiencing. I was also undergoing a transformation mentally and emotionally. I was becoming more resilient, more confident, and more determined. I was taking control of my life, and it felt amazing. But as progress was made, a new challenge emerged. I still remember the first time I walked into my new office, feeling like a completely different person. The weight loss had not only transformed my body, but it had also given me a newfound sense of confidence that I had never experienced before. As I looked around at my new colleagues, I felt a sense of belonging that I had never felt in my previous roles. They looked at me with respect, and I could tell that they were eager to work with me. My new job was a challenge, but it was one that I was ready to take on. I threw myself into my work, determined to prove myself and make a name for myself in the company. My hard work paid off, and I quickly started to rise through the ranks. My colleagues and mentors took notice of my skills and dedication, and they started to offer me new opportunities and responsibilities. One of my colleagues, a woman named Sarah, became a close friend and mentor to me. She took me under her wing and taught me the ins and outs of the company. She introduced me to key people in the industry and helped me to build a network of contacts that would serve me well in the years to come. As I continued to succeed in my career, I started to realize the impact that my weight loss had had on my confidence and self-perception. I no longer felt like I was hiding behind my weight, and I was able to present myself to the world in a way that I never had before. I felt like I was finally living the life that I was meant to live, and it was an incredible feeling. But despite all of my successes, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was hiding a secret. Something that I had never told anyone, not even my closest friends and family. It was a secret that I knew could potentially ruin my career and my reputation, and it was a secret that I knew I would have to keep hidden at all costs. For now, I was able to push it to the back of my mind and focus on my career, but I knew that it wouldn't stay hidden forever. I still remember the day I was appointed as the CEO of the company. It was a surreal experience, walking into the office and seeing my name on the door, knowing that I had achieved the ultimate goal I had set for myself. But with every step I took, I felt the weight of my secret bearing down on me. As I looked out at the city skyline from my office window, I couldn't help but feel like I was living a lie. I had worked so hard to get to this point, but the fear of being discovered and losing everything was always lurking in the shadows. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, balancing my success with the internal conflict of hiding my true self. I had always been self-conscious about my weight, and now that I was in the public eye, I felt like I was under a microscope. I would attend meetings and conferences, and people would look at me with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. I could sense their questions. How did someone like her become a CEO? Or, is she really capable of leading this company? The pressure was mounting, and I felt like I was going to crack under the weight of my secret. I began to question my own abilities, wondering if I was truly worthy of my position. I felt like I was living in a constant state of fear, always looking over my shoulder, waiting for someone to discover my truth. But despite the internal turmoil, I put on a brave face and continued to lead the company with confidence and determination. I knew that I had worked hard to get to this point, and I wasn't going to let my secret define me. I was determined to prove to myself and everyone else that I was capable of success, no matter what my weight was. As I sat at my desk, staring out at the city, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. I was going to keep my secret hidden, no matter what it took. But little did I know, the pressure was about to become almost too much to bear. I'll never forget the day my world came crashing down around me. The stress of hiding my secret had finally taken its toll, and I was at my breaking point. I had been living a lie, pretending to be someone I wasn't, and the weight of that deception was crushing me. It started with little things. I would get anxious in meetings, worried that someone would discover my secret. I would avoid social gatherings, afraid of being asked questions that I couldn't answer truthfully. But as time went on, the anxiety turned to depression, and the depression turned to desperation. I remember walking into my office one day, feeling like I was going to collapse under the weight of my own secrets. My heart was racing, my palms were sweating, and my mind was spinning. I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I had to confront the consequences of hiding my secret, no matter how difficult it would be. As I sat at my desk, staring blankly at the wall, I realized that I had a choice to make. I could continue living a lie, or I could take a chance and be honest about who I really was. It was a terrifying thought, but it was also liberating. I thought back to all the times I had been afraid to speak up, afraid to be myself. I thought about all the opportunities I had missed, all the relationships I had damaged because of my fear of being discovered. And I knew that I couldn't keep living like that. The truth was, I was tired of hiding. I was tired of being afraid. I was tired of living a life that wasn't mine. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would reveal my secret, no matter what the consequences were. It was a dramatic confrontation, one that would change everything. But it was also a necessary one. Because in that moment, I realized that truth and authenticity were essential. I realized that being honest, being vulnerable, was the only way to truly be free. And so, I took a deep breath, and I began to plan my revelation. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew that it was the right thing to do. And the decision to reveal the truth would change everything. I still remember the day I decided to share my secret with the world. It was a mix of emotions, fear, anxiety, and a hint of relief. After years of hiding, I finally felt ready to be vulnerable and open about my journey. I weighed 330 pounds and became a CEO, but the real story was far more complex. As I shared my truth, I was met with a range of reactions. Some friends and family members were shocked, others were supportive, and a few were even judgmental. I expected it, but it still stung. Colleagues were more understanding, perhaps because they had seen my transformation firsthand. They had witnessed my hard work and determination, and many of them had been inspired by my story. The impact on my career was immediate. I received messages from people all over the world, thanking me for my bravery and sharing their own stories of struggle and triumph. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. I felt like I had finally found my purpose, to inspire and motivate others to be their authentic selves. Personally, it was a huge weight off my shoulders. I no longer had to hide or pretend to be someone I wasn't. I could be me, flaws and all. It was liberating, and I felt a sense of peace that I had never experienced before. But as I basked in the glow of acceptance and support, I knew that this was just the beginning. I had taken a huge risk by sharing my secret, and I had no idea what the consequences would be. Would I be able to handle the scrutiny and attention that came with being a public figure? Would I be able to maintain my authenticity and vulnerability in the face of criticism and judgment? I thought I had prepared myself for anything, but the real surprise was yet to come. As I stood there, the weight of my secret finally lifted off my shoulders. I felt a mix of emotions, relief, anxiety, and a hint of uncertainty about what was to come. The room seemed to grow quieter, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for my next move. The sound of my own heartbeat was almost deafening. I took a deep breath and let my gaze wander across the room, taking in the reactions of those around me. Some faces showed shock and surprise, while others displayed compassion and understanding. I felt a sense of gratitude towards those who seemed to accept me for who I was, without judgment. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and self-discovery. I had never imagined that sharing my secret would feel so liberating, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I finally felt free to be myself, without the constant fear of being discovered or ridiculed. As I began to navigate this new chapter in my life, I encountered many people who shared their own stories of struggle and self-acceptance. Their tales of resilience and courage inspired me to continue moving forward, even in the face of adversity. I realized that my journey was not just about my weight or my position as a CEO. It was about finding the strength to be true to myself. I began to see that the freedom I had longed for was not just a physical state, but a mental and emotional one as well. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was living as my authentic self. I was no longer bound by the secrets and insecurities that had held me back for so long. I was finally free to explore and discover who I truly was, without the weight of secrecy holding me back. And as I looked to the future, I knew that I would carry this newfound sense of freedom and self-acceptance with me every step of the way. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a new journey, one that would lead me to places I never thought I'd go. I'm standing in front of the mirror, and for a moment, I don't recognize the person staring back at me. It's not just the physical transformation that's profound, but the sense of self-worth, the confidence, and the self-acceptance. I've come a long way from the 330-pound person who struggled to find their place in the world. As I reflect on my journey, I realize that I've learned so much about myself and about life. I've learned that success isn't just about achieving a goal, but about staying true to oneself in the process. I've learned that failure is not the opposite of success, but a stepping stone to get there. And I've learned that authenticity is the key to unlocking one's true potential. I think back to the days when I struggled to find a job, when I was constantly rejected and belittled. I think about the times when I felt like giving up, when the pain and the shame seemed too much to bear. But I also think about the moments of triumph, when I pushed through the struggles and proved to myself that I was capable of so much more. As I look back on my journey, I realize that I've been given a rare gift, a second chance at life. And with this gift, I've discovered a new sense of purpose and direction. I know that I'm not just a CEO, but a role model, a beacon of hope for those who are struggling to find their way. I think about the people who have supported me along the way, my friends, my family, and my colleagues. I think about the mentors who believed in me, who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I think about the strangers who have reached out to me, who have shared their own struggles and triumphs with me. As I reflect on my journey, I realize that it's not just about me. It's about the people who have been touched by my story, who have been inspired to take control of their own lives. It's about the ripple effect of kindness and compassion that has spread far and wide. And as I stand here, looking at the person I've become, I know that I've come full circle. I've found my true self and I've found my purpose. I know that I'll continue to face challenges and setbacks, but I also know that I have the strength and the resilience to overcome them. I take a deep breath and I smile. I know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And as I look out at the world, I know that I'm ready for whatever comes next.